All right, everybody, we are back today with another tutorial. This tutorial was requested by another one of my followers. Their name is Augustin. Augustin has requested that I do a brief tutorial on how I would edit one of his photos from a trip he took to Japan of Mount Fuji. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, this is a fairly simple composure. This image, basic landscape shot, large central subject, and positioned right in the middle of the frame. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop this image to the framing that I want to see. I'm going to crop that in there. I'm going to go for more of a wide format. I just want to get rid of this brush in the foreground here. It's quite distracting. It'd be interesting in hindsight to bring the camera closer to the ground and have this foliage obscure more of this negative space here, just because there's not a lot going on in this negative space, and I don't think there's enough color coming across the water from that sunset that you can see coming across the right side of the sky there for it to be that engaging of a subject matter. So for this piece, I'm just going to take that out because I feel like your eye is a little bit distracted by the foreground here, and so in hindsight I would bring that camera lower, have these reeds cover some of the water and maybe up towards the base of the mountain to get that diminishing perspective. But as the image is now, I'm just going to crop that up and reduce the amount of water in the image and go for a wide screen like that. Already, I think that is looking much better. Your eye is immediately drawn to the central subject. There's still a little bit of foliage there, a little bit there. I might use AI to get rid of a little bit of that. I don't love doing that though, so we're going to see how I can make it look without doing that. You could keep more sky into the image, but I think for this in particular, it's going to be better just to keep it basic. And I do think that this widescreen draws your eye to the subject much better than if you were to have more sky in the frame. It gets a little bit more lost in there. Alright, so with our crop done, I'm happy with the way this is framed now. It's more of a cinematic wide shot, something that you might see off like an anamorphic lens or whatever, or just a wider shot in general. And I like its composition much better now with that crop. The next thing I'm going to go in and do is adjust the exposure. I'm just going to turn it up a little bit. I don't want to completely blow out the color here. This is a JPEG file I've been given, so it's going to be a little trickier to edit than I'm used to. So I'm going to pull that up just a little bit. And then I'm going to pull up the contrast just to see how that affects your shadows. I will pull that up just a touch because I want these blacks to be deepened a little bit, and it hasn't done too much, it hasn't brought that much noise into the frame, and the highlights are still okay. I'm not going to touch the curves for now. I will touch the highlights. I'll pull those down, try to pull some color out of there, and the shadows, I'm going to want to pull those down a little bit, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to try to adjust the rest of the image first. I also might go in and straighten this a little bit because at the time it was a tiny bit off kilter. Right, now we can already see there's some more color coming through there. It is a little noisy. I'll run a denoise on that later. For now, I'm going to move on to white balance. I want to pull this white balance up personally. It's not too bad in this image, but you can see this is all blue haze. I call it blue wash. It's just atmosphere in your frame, which often often takes on a blue tinge, dark blue hue. So I want to sort of counteract that by just turning up the warmth, turning up the white balance, changing the white balance really in this frame. You can go really extreme with it, but I'm going to look at the water down here to use that as a reference point for what's not enough and what's too much. So I think that water is mostly a neutral color. We should be okay. So that would be too much. That would be too little. We go somewhere in the middle, somewhere around 8 or 9. I think we'll start with 8, and we might turn it up a little more if I need to. I'm going to look at how magenta affects it. Not very much. Green makes it look too flat, personally, and there's not a lot of green in the frame to embellish it that anyway. I might turn it to green just a little bit down the line, just to get rid of some of this magenta that we see on the water, but a lot of that may be due to the light reflection of the sunset anyway, which means that it is technically more accurate with those hues regardless. So for now, I'm going to leave that. I'm also going to skip past the color wheels for now, and I'm going to move down to my texturing section. I'm going to turn up the clarity on this bad boy just to embellish that snow on the top. It's not the highest res, but it's probably going to be viewed on Instagram anyway, so I'm not too worried. Not a huge deal. The texture I could turn up a little bit, but I think I'm going to do that as a mask, just to do it only on the snow, because I don't want to over texture these wispy clouds here. Dehaze, pretty useless on this image. It's just going to blow things out way too much. Vignette could do a little, but because there is highlights with a lot of color coming across from the right side, I don't want to darken those with vignette. So if I do that, it'll be after the fact, and it's unlikely. I guess because it's a JPEG, I can't use denoise, so that'll make my job a touch bit trickier. I will use super resolution anyway and see what that is able to add to my image, but it's not that important, and it hasn't done very much. So, next, move for aberration, lens correction, not important for this image. We go to my masking tab. I'm in a mask landscape. This will just automatically detect different aspects of the landscape with masks that separate from one another so that I can grade them separately. We'll start with the sky here. I want to really pull some of that color from the right side into the image a bit more. So I'm going to turn down the exposure just a touch. Maybe like 8. And then the highlights a little bit more. I don't know how I feel about doing that much. It is ringing. You can already see a lot of noise into the frame if I do that. So I want to be gentle. Basically, we want to create a nice gradient of color, and I want it to cascade a bit further into the frame. I'll turn up the saturation a little. I'll turn up the warmth a little, just so it comes further into the frame. The tint. Now I want to look at this pocket of sky so I can gauge how far I'm going and whether or not I want to go more or less. Now I think I might lean into a more of an evening aesthetic. Obviously green looks horrible, but it is realistic that even though it's going to change to more of a purple color, the later it gets, the more your sky starts to look like that anyway. This would be way too far. That's quite like a synthwave, vaporwave aesthetic sort of a thing, is the way I would think about it. It's artistically aesthetic, but not at all realistic and clearly over edited to anybody looking at it. So I'm just going to lean into that purple, but not that far. Next, you could play with hue. I don't really want to because I've adjusted what I need to with the temperature and the tint already. I'm going to go into clarity and I'm going to turn that down just because I want the nice smooth sky gradient. Texture doesn't really matter. I've already turned the clarity all the way down, but I might as well slam that as well. As long as it doesn't look too far separated from the mountain, I'm pretty okay with it being turned quite far down. Like, you just want to watch this ridge line and make sure that you're not screwing that up. I am a little bit, so I'm probably just going to leave that neutral just as to not have too big of an impact there. Next, I'll do some noise reduction, just a little bit, because again, I want it to be smooth and soaky colors. I might try turning up the saturation a little bit more, but I see that yellow in there, and that's a little too much for me. Although it does really add, I think, to the rest of the frame. So what I'll do for that is I'll go back into my normal color tab, and I'll grab the spot color mixer, and I'll just turn that yellow. I don't even want to turn it down, I just want to turn it towards more of an orange. Because we're leaning into more of an evening aesthetic anyway, so I don't want it to be yellow like it looks when the sun is just starting to set. Next, I'm going to go back into that mask, and I'm going to just adjust the noise reduction and the texture until I stop seeing separation. These colors, see all that separation you get there? I don't want any of that. I want it to be very smooth, and I think that is good enough for me. There's still a little texture there, which I like. Makes it feel more realistic. Your sky's not perfectly smooth. There's probably some very far distant clouds that are just hard to pick up there. So I don't want to completely ruin it, but I definitely want it to be fairly smooth. I'm going to add a little bit to this as well, just with the brush, just so I can include this sliver for consistency's sake. And now that is nice and orange too. All right. Next, I'm going to move on to focusing more on my foregrounds. Back to my masking. I'm going to create a new mask, and I'm going to go back to my landscape mask options. Now I have the mountain, vegetation, water, and snow. I'm going to start next with my mountain. Sort of just going to move down the scene. Now I'm going to adjust the exposure. We could do a silhouette shot, but it'd look pretty goofy considering that realistically this would never be a silhouette because it's lit from the side, not from the back. Silhouettes really only happen when you have a solid backlight. Change the temperature a little bit. As you can see that we're getting this color just here on the white, and it's not affecting the water because we masked it out like we were worried about before. We can lean into this a lot harder now. That's obviously way overdone, but I just want to go until you can still see that color affecting that side. I think somewhere right about there. It's made it too yellow in the blacks, but I'll correct that by just turning the blacks down a little bit, maybe the shadows, and we'll adjust it somehow. And I do want to, at some stage, turn those blacks down a little bit. Up the clarity, up the texture, just a touch. 30%, I guess, more than a touch. And slap some noise reduction on there. I don't want to do that much noise reduction. I'd really just rather... Yeah, I think I'll just mask the foreground separately so I can make it a little bit darker. And that will have the effect I'm looking for. Next, I am going to go and select landscape again, and I'm going to go snow because I want to adjust the warmth on that so that it looks more like the light is coming through from that right side, having a bigger effect than it does right now on that snow. I want to be careful that I match it relatively well to the sunset colors here, make it look realistic. And again, I know some people will disagree with how much I'm editing this, but what I'm really just trying to do here is make it look the way I imagine it looked when it was shot. Because oftentimes cameras do not do the best job of, depending upon how you shoot, of capturing accurately the scene. So it's all about accuracy. I'm going to remove this bit. I don't want that to be masked in with the snow mask because that'll ruin the colors I've set there for the sky. Then I'm going to go back to adjusting this mask a little bit here and there. Just going to play around with it a little bit. I don't want it to be too blended in there. I still want it to have some whites and highlights. Be kind of shiny. But it's easy to overdo at the same time. I'm going to lean into the white a little bit because it's going to help me later. And that's probably good for me for now. It's very tricky being a JPEG, trying to see exactly what it needs. But definitely needs something because I want the rest of the mountain to look more like it does in that left side, that left corner there. It's not quite as bright, fuzzy as it is in the mid-ground. I think maybe a very carefully placed mask might work. However, for now, to vegetation, then I'll do the water. And there's not really a lot to do here. I'm just playing around and looking at it because I can. Realistically, your eye's not going to that part of the scene. I'm just probably going to darken it a little bit here and there. Give it a little bit of that warmth. Turn down the texture on it. Not quite that much, but somewhat. Alright, I'm pretty happy with this as a base to move forward on now. I'll do the water really quickly anyway. I think I'm going to make the water a little bit brighter. Definitely make sure I continue to lean into that warm tone that's coming across. Pull the saturation up a little. Into just a bit. Make it a little smoother. Maybe change the hue just a bit just to try to match that. Sky a little bit. I think there was good. Yeah, I think that matches pretty well all the way through. It's a tiny bit light for me, so I might go back in and just turn that contrast down a little bit, mess with that. No, I'll leave that where it was. Maybe turn the highlights. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Turn the highlights down just a tad. I like what that does to the middle, but it doesn't work all that well. That's probably good for me. See what the whites do to it. Not much. Yeah, having the blacks down might help bring that color through a little bit. That's much better. That water looks much better now. So we're kind of getting this nice blocking here that I'm a big fan of. I am going to go in and just scrub out that plant. Have it replaced with just water. Unfortunately now, that is not part of our mask, but it should fix itself. I go into here and I add a little bit of mask over it. Now that should be just like the rest of it. Not quite though. Let me go back into the AI settings and could just use heel switch as well. If I can't figure it out like this, try to do it one more time now that you mask properly. Yeah, now you can barely see that. You can still see it if you really know what you're looking for, but I think that's plenty good for my purposes here. Yeah, that's sweet. Perfect. Now that we've dealt with the little eyesore down there, I want to take my attention to these clouds because, as you can see, they are much the wrong color. finally sorted it out. Right, now I'm gonna go into here. I'm gonna take the saturation of the blue and mess with it, just because I want to isolate the three main colors to see, or less if there is less, and I only see right now there's a bit of purple and this yellow hue, this gradient here. So I'm going to turn the saturation of the blue right down. I'm also going to go back into my masking again, and I do want that sky to be a little smoother, I've decided, so I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to lower the sharpness of the sky just like 30%. And with that, we have a little bit smoother sky up here. Now, I think we're almost done with this image. We still need to sort out this weird haze in here, but other than that, I think it's complete. Like, both clouds look pretty good. I'd like a little more color on the tips, but all in all, it's pretty good. Could do a little touch up, but for Instagram, it's not gonna be something anybody looks at and goes, oh my god, why is there a tiny bit more blue there on the clouds and everywhere else? And if you were really worried about that, you could go in with, I know, another mask. And try to turn off that. I don't know, you could go in and mess with that. Turn the density down a little bit so it's not so harsh, and just throw a little bit up here. And a little bit up here. On that little fin. Again, it's nothing you're really going to notice unless you really look for it. A little bit up here. I think I'm actually going to go back on that. I liked it better when it was a little more defined, and I can just increase the feather again. And I can get mostly what I was looking to do without ruining that definition that I was seeing. Yeah, just like that. Not anymore. Blue up there, and then there's a tiny bit more, like we said, over here, and a tiny bit down here, right by where the seam is. So I can pick that up a little bit. Ooh, wrong brush. That's pretty simple to sort out. And then the last touch is over here. It's actually filled in, so it's odd. Just go through it a little more. Oh, wrong brush again. With the density on it. And we can look at that. Problem solved. And our cloud is all nice and warm. Might actually turn that up a touch more. Don't want to go ballistic with it, but 25. About 25. Now we got a nice warm cloud, we got a nice warm scene, everything's looking great except for this gray right through the middle. So I'm gonna do a painful another mask. But that's okay. I might try to use a luminance range for this one, or actually a radial gradient might be the perfect thing if I just do like a long skinny radial gradient. I tilt it a little bit. Fatten that out, make it a little snubbier. That looks like it mostly covers what I'm trying to get. Now I just need to turn down exposure just a little bit. That's probably good. Just gonna brush through here a little as well. Ooh, that's too low. We're gonna make that a little smaller through here is what I was thinking. That might have too much density to it. Just turn that down. Hey, look at that. I think I cleaned this a little bit in there, but I think that's pretty damn good. And that is pretty much how I would edit that photo. Now, I know it's a lengthy process, but if we take a look at the before and after, I think that it was quite worth it. We went from this image here to a very nicely graded, consistent, colored, processed image. Now, with a RAW file, this would be significantly easier because you'd be able to pull up these colors without having to do so much masking and tweak them without so much noise and weird saturation bugs popping up. But for, you got to work with what you have. And so I think with what we had to work with, this JPEG, we did a pretty good job. And I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. Now I would go in and just pull the color noise up by a little bit before I export. That's just going to make sure that the color all flows pretty smoothly. And then I'll grab the image, update the AI setting it wants me to update, which was our little tiny mask out of that shrub. And now that that is done, I will export. Export it full size, export to desktop. Let that do its thing, and then we're done. That's it. That's the whole thing. You are now ready to post your finished image. All right, guys. So there you have it. The image is all finished up. Not the highest res, but plenty for making it into the post about your travels. And I think that came out quite nicely. There's some minor details that I would love to change, like the oversaturation a little bit in this cloud where I didn't quite mask it out perfectly, and the noise and the shadow here. I wish I could have put the noise on it. If it was a raw file, that would have been great. It wasn't, so I had limited options. You could pull across here and pull this uh, darker shadow here and underexpose the middle of this image a bit more, but it would take some more time and energy and significant masking if you wanted it to blend perfectly up through this mountain. And I decided that to keep this short, I was just going to leave it at what I thought was enough, and I think this is plenty. So, with that being said, Happy New Year, everybody, and happy editing.